Probably going to disappoint everybody because I do not use Lightroom. I don't use Lightroom for anything. I use Hey, it's Jason with JLM Photography, and today I'm going to show you kind of how I, not necessarily cull, but edit images as part of the second part of a video that I just recently shot. Probably going to disappoint everybody because I do not use Lightroom. I don't use Lightroom for anything. I use Adobe Bridge, Camera Raw, and Photoshop. But if I haven't lost you already, let's go ahead and get started. So I don't do a lot of volume photography. I don't do like weddings and stuff like that. So I don't constantly have like tons of galleries to go through. But so I don't necessarily edit every photo on its own, but kind of what I do is I'll just kind of go through and, I'll take a group. This is kind of the culling process in Adobe Bridge. So I'll take a group. I use a lot of hotkeys. And I use the camera profile, the neutral camera profile for the Canon R5. So I'll just switch that on the profile. I'll hit edit, and then I just kind of, I hit auto. So I basically kind of just let the camera raw do a little bit of the edit for me, and then I just kind of tweak from there to see what it is that I like. The color, I try to make sure that it's not overly warm, and that temperature varies based off of, wherever it is. So these numbers are very much arbitrary as far as, you going to edit and your thing. Now, something that I always do is for my vibrance in my color, I always keep it at 17. I don't know why, I just like it. And for the saturation, I keep it at 4. So that's the color. As for the effects, I like my texture to be around 2, my clarity to be around 5, and my dehaze to be around 5 as well. And that's pretty much it. If I need to straighten lines, I'll straighten lines through here. And again, I can kind of do all of this stuff in Camera Raw. And so once I get kind of an edit that I really like, as far as the color, the tones, and everything, I just pretty much everything that's going to be in that same, because I shot it the same, I will just kind of edit it. And if I need to tweak it from there, I tweak it from there. So I kind of go back to the exposure and tweak a little bit. And probably, since this is a dance shoot, probably what I should do before I do all this tweaking is go through and pick some that, or get rid of the ones that I know we won't use. But I just kind of wanted to go through a quick, this is how I do it. So yeah, so that's basically what I do for that. Let me go to, we ended up doing a couple portraits in this session, and I'll go to those because those will be more what I actually show for the edit, because I'm going to show what I do with the skin and stuff like that. So again, I'm going to take this group of 4 because it's in the same kind of grouping. I shot it the same way, shot it with the same color. I'm going to apply the neutral profile for my camera, hit edit or an alt, or hit edit and then auto. And again, I just kind of tweak it from there. I typically go with a little bit of higher contrast. The color actually looks pretty good right there already. So maybe I'm just going to darken it a little bit and maybe give it a little bit more black. I like it to be, I like it to have some contrast. I don't like my images flat. So again, maybe it's a little bit on the blue side, or the cool side, so I'm going to warm it up just a little bit, maybe to give it a little bit of the magenta. And then, as I said, for the vibrance I go to 17, and my saturation I go to 4, and then my texture 2, clarity 5, dehaze 5, and then I'm going to select each of those and apply it to all. Now here, let's see here. I like this one. I don't necessarily like this one. I'll get rid of that. I do like that one, and I definitely like that one, so I need to kind of straighten that one. So we'll straighten that one just a little bit. I really do like that one, like the smile. This one's okay. That one's probably my favorite. So I'll straighten that one also. And you're just kind of looking for lines that you know are supposed to be straight. I was just off a little bit. Sometimes I'm off a lot, but you know, for the most part. So I'll actually select that one. I'll give it a star, so maybe I'll come back to that one as that will be my edit. I'll go to done, and then I know I have a couple more here at the very end. Let's go here to here. Same thing. Neutral profile, auto, just to kind of get it in the ballpark, and then I'm going to tweak from there. I want it a little bit brighter than that, a little bit more contrast, maybe drop my highlights a little bit, get some shadow back in there, some black, make sure my color's okay. Could be a little bit on the warm side, but not too bad. Add a little magenta, vibrance 17, saturation, go to 4. Then my effects, as I said, 2, 5, 5. And then I'm going to apply that to all of those. And then just kind of go through and see which ones I really like. So I really do like that one. I like that one. I really like that one too. I like that one a lot. So I'll give that one a 3-star. Definitely like that one. I like that one a lot because of the eyes. What you see is those catch lights in the eyes. Whereas, you know, like this one is good. They don't jump out. Definitely they don't see them there because she's looking away. Here you can see them, but they're not as prominent as they are in this one. So this one, I'm sorry, as in that one. So I really like that one. Maybe I actually meant that one. Either way, I like both of those last two because that one we really do see the catch lights. So we'll go there. What I'm going to do now is I've got 3 images that I've got that I picked. So let's go with this one, and this one. And I think I really like this one the best for the one that I'm going to edit. It does have some skin so that you can kind of, again, see what I do. So that's what we're going to do. So then I just open the raw file in Photoshop, Command R. It actually opens it back up in RAW, and then I'm going to hit open. Sorry, I don't use Lightroom. I've never liked it. I learned Photoshop years and years and years ago, and I've always kept up with it. And then as I started becoming a photographer, I just never got into using Lightroom. It was just always more interesting not interesting, but it's just easier for me to go right into Photoshop. I know Lightroom's got a lot of tools, but for the workflow that I have, not doing a lot of volume, not having to do a whole lot of batch syncing and all that kind of stuff, Camera Raw, Bridge, and Photoshop work perfectly for me. And so now I've got my image opened up here in Photoshop, and I've got a couple things that I typically do, and they're actions that I've actually already created so that I don't have to go through step by step every time. For some of the actions, I will probably continue to do the actions, but what I might do is do a separate video where I actually show what the action is, but I'm not going to do that in this one. I just want you to see what a basic edit is for me, and it's an edit that I do every time. It's, for the most part, exact same edit, whether I shoot with flash, no flash, pretty much everything I do. So the first thing that I do is I want to soften her face a little bit. You know, she's got some blemishes, and so what I want to do is get rid of those. So you can use a thing what's called frequency separation, and that's actually one of the actions that I do have. But Photoshop now, and I think they brought it out in the 1 or 2 iterations back, but they've got these new neural filters. So rather than me using my action for this, I'll just go to neural filters, and I believe Lightroom has something very similar because it smooths out the skin. So I'm going to hit skin smoothing right here, and just a number that seems to work fairly well for me is 54, and my smoothness is 4. And so as you can see, that smooths it out quite a bit. And so then I just apply it to that layer. Sometimes if I've got multiple people, like for instance a guy and a girl, I will actually do it, and I'll do it to a second layer or a new layer. because more than likely I'm not going to smooth out the guy's skin. I'm just going to get rid of blemishes, but I'm not going to smooth out the guy's skin. But for right now, current layer. Takes a few seconds. So again, we've got that. And so I'll just do a history so you can see. So that is without the skin smoothing. This is with the neural filter on it. All right. And again, it doesn't get it perfectly clear, but that's kind of where we're starting. So the next thing that I do is I add a warm layer because I like a little bit of warmth. So I do have an action for this. And basically what it is all it is it's a color fill layer. So you can go to your adjustment layers, solid color is what I have. And then I would just kind of pick the warm layer color that I want. So I've got like an orange that I use. I've got it set to soft light and the opacity is at 7. So you can kind of see I'll turn it on and off. You can see just a little bit of that warmth in there. And that's super easy, super simple. And you know, that's that. The next thing that I do is I brighten the eyes. So I've created another action to where I brighten the eyes. And really all this is it's a new layer set to overlay on my adjustment layers. And I have my opacity at 35%. So then I'll zoom in. And I will, basically I'm using white on my brush. And the reason that you don't see the white is because it's set to overlay. If I move this back to normal, you'll see that I'm painting white. Oh, and the opacity is down. Yeah, so I'm painting white basically over her eye. So I want to take that back down to 35. And then I also want to set it to overlay. And so now I'll turn that on and off. And from here, you can kind of see just a little bit of a difference, but you'll notice it more up front. If the person has like really bright blue eyes, I kind of tone that down. Sometimes I'll go down with that number, so it's not a hard number that I have to sit at 35%. Sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 55, depending on how much I actually want to show the eyes. Also, what I might do too is because she's got the black in her eyes, just for her iris, I'll just come back in and erase that back out just so that black can stay black. So there we have that. So now what I actually want to do is go in and remove blemishes. So I'm going to go back to my main layer and I'm going to use the patch tool. Again, there's multiple ways that you can do this. You can use the spot healing brush, the remove tool, the healing brush. The patch tool works great for me. It's J on your keyboard, but you're just going to grab it, make sure that it's set to source, and I just kind of go through and I clean this up. I don't get everything. I mean, you can't get everything unless you take forever. And I don't take forever on my work. I want my photos to look as close to natural as possible. Now, what you do want to do when you're doing patchwork like this and blemish removal is, as you start to do it, sometimes you'll notice repetitions in skin shape or skin forms, and so you just kind of want to be real careful with that and just really be cautious to look for anything that's repetitive. Basically, because as you're moving the patch, it's grabbing pixels from other locations and kind of patching it and resolving it. So as you can see, I kind of have a repetitive look right here. So I just want to maybe kind of clean that up and make it not look repetitive like I've touched it up. This hair here, I'm going to remove this hair. You don't want to come out here. You want to, because that hair is so close to the skin, you want to keep it kind of in the same vicinity. And that's really how you want to use the patch tool. I can take this and go all the way over here, and you can see that it changes the texture of the skin. I'm going to Command Z that. So you want to still keep it in the same area. Grab skin from the same area that's clean so that it doesn't give you weird textures. In here, this one is a little bit sketch. And as you can see, I probably had my flash a little bit too bright. So I'm going to show you how I fix that also. So all these little white specular highlights basically kind of going off the bumps on the skin and stuff like that. So, I mean, honestly, it's not too bad, but I'll show you how I'll clean it up. And whether or not you want to do it like that, you can do it like that. So we have like a little pattern here. You probably noticed that. So I'm going to try to clean that up a little bit. And that's probably pretty good. And you know, I'm zoomed in. Nobody's zooming in like that on social media. I'm also at this time going to look at the rest of the skin. You know, what else do we need to fix? So I'm just kind of looking and going over for other blemishes or marks. I don't ever really remove scars unless I'm asked to remove scars. Scars are permanent, blemishes are not. So I typically will remove what is temporary and keep what's permanent. So it looks like maybe a tan line or something here. So to resolve that, I'll just basically go like that. And now it just smooths it out just a little bit more. And I'm really not trying to spend any longer on this photo than I would typically do, because I want you to see this is exactly how I do this. Oops. I don't want that because I don't need that second freckle, mole, whatever. Let's see here. Okay, so that looks pretty good. This is where you can also, you know, maybe find pieces of lint or dust on the clothing, and so you can also clean that up with the same patch tool. And that's how I do that, just to kind of get it all cleaned up. All right, so I've got that done for the most part. And now what I want to do is I'm going to do my action for frequency smooth or frequency separation. So frequency separation, and I'm not a detail person, but it basically kind of copies, duplicates that layer, inverts it, gives you a lot of the texture back, but also smooths a lot of it, but it allows you to get a nice looking skin smoothness and texture without it looking super bad. Now, of course, you can have it really bad if you don't turn down the opacity, and I always turn down the opacity when I do frequency separation. And so I will try to do another video on this, but there's plenty of other people. One person in particular, Pix Imperfect on YouTube, and I will link him below, is fantastic. Probably the smartest Photoshop person I've ever seen on YouTube or online. If you want to know what frequency separation is, go check him out. Create an action in Photoshop. So that you can start using frequency separation to fix your skin. Some people think that it's all just about smoothing out the skin, and yes, it does smooth the skin, but really what it does is it kind of helps get rid of some of the blotchiness of the skin. So it just makes the skin look a little nicer. You know, sometimes you can see the veins through the skin, and you know, if they're very fair skinned or whatever, or you might just have little blotches on the skin. And so frequency separation and working it is the way to kind of clean that up. So I'm going to use my action here to do that, and I'll just kind of show you in the history what it's basically done. So the last thing I did was the patch selection, then I deselected it. So then I did my action, and this is my action. So I've created a new copy of the bottom layer, a blending change, a high pass filter, invert it, Gaussian filter or Gaussian blur, and then a layer mask. So I'm not going to explain all of that, but basically I'm doing frequency separation on this. I don't necessarily need to go over the face with frequency separation since I use the neural filters, but I'm going to kind of do it anyway and just see how it looks. And as you can see, it just kind of smooths it out just a little bit. And this layer is at 100%. So I don't ever leave it at 100% when I do frequency separation. So I'm just going to kind of go over all of the skin. The thing with the neural filters is, as good as it's getting, it only does facial detection, and it doesn't always do it very well. Like sometimes it can't detect the face. So that's why I still do use a regular action for frequency smoothing. Until they get one that actually is smoothing out skin, then maybe I can kind of work to that. But I'm not getting real close. You can actually see if I get it right on there, it just kind of does a little bit weird to like darkness like that. Dark pieces. Like if I get real close to the skin here, it's going to give me weird stuff like that. So I kind of keep it off. And I am using the mask here. So basically it's non-destructive, and I'll be able to go back in and adjust it if I need to. But I'm basically painting out painting in my frequency separation layer so that it's seeable. And so really what it is it's skin texture that has been smoothed and softened with a Gaussian blur and some other stuff, but it just gives a nice effect. And if you're watching it right now, you'll be like, it's too smooth, it's way too smooth. Well, I definitely tone it down. So I mean, it looks like a complete airbrush job right now if I was to zoom out. So everything looks super airbrushed, and I don't leave it like that. Typically, I'm going to push it to 60% and just see how it looks from there. And at 60%, that looks pretty good. I still want to see some of the skin in it, but again, you know, that first leg is blurred out more because of depth of field. This back leg here looks a little bit better. You can see some of the texture of the skin still. If I think it's too much, I could always go down to maybe like 52. And then we'll just kind of look at the skin. And again, all it's done is really just smoothed out the skin. And you can see that, you know, kind of where her ribs are and stuff like that. So it just smooths it out, makes it look a little bit nicer. So that's basically how I would edit. Because I save these photos, I go ahead and merge these layers. I don't really ever go back in and edit. But what I do want to do is kind of fix up this little piece of skin that's got some specular highlights. So I'm going to grab my patch tool and select the area that I want. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a content aware fill. So edit content aware fill, and so it's going to look for what areas it needs to look for. So this is where you can kind of paint out areas. You know, you don't need the eyebrows, eyelids, anything like that. So I want to make sure that it's not trying to select those. It doesn't need to it doesn't need to sample skin from the nose. It probably doesn't need to sample from here. It really needs to sample from here and here. So I'm going to add a little bit more of this. And I can see what it's going to look like there. So it's not going to be perfect, but I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So now I've got that, and of course you can tell that doesn't look right. So how do you make it look right? Simple. Just lower the opacity on it until you feel like it's giving you that look, and it tones down the specular highlights. So now if I turn it on and off, it's really softened that specular highlight. It gives you the same color. That's the way I do it. So if I turn my layers on or off, and you can see what it's actually done to the specular highlights on her forehead. The last thing that I do is I add a curves layer so that I can just add just a little bit more contrast. So I'm going to pull this over on the bottom. This is my darks. This is my lights, so pure white here. And then I just kind of play around and figure out how I want it to look. And I kind of like that. So there we go. Maybe it's a little bit too contrasty. There we go. Like I said, I like it to look almost as natural as I shot it. And that's the edit. I'll merge those two layers and done. So just real quick, I'm going to open up one more, the other one, and show you that I basically do the exact same thing to this one here. So I'm going to do my neural filters, and I'm going to just do the action that I've got for it. So it softens the face. You can see if I go back into the history, open, soften. I'm going to add my warm layer, my eyes layer. I'm going to paint the eyes just to brighten them a little bit. Then I'm going to come in and pull out some of these blemishes. Remember to use like colored skin for it. Try to keep those textures in it too if it's got the texture. watch out for those patterns. And she has pretty good skin anyway, but the camera picks up a lot more than what we actually can see. That looks like a birthmarky type skin, so I'll leave that there. Very nice. I will do my frequency separation and then paint that out. Let's see, the frequency separation does kind of remove a little bit of that skin discoloration. So I just want to make sure that if it does it too much, I bring it back. This, you don't have to be perfect, you just kind of want to get it close. I use a real soft brush too, so my hardness is at 30%. Size is, depending on what size, how much of the skin you need. But softer the brush is better. Change my opacity down to 60%. I like that. I'm going to merge these two and then add contrast. And that's how I would edit that. That's how I edit. I don't really spend that long on these. I spent a little bit longer on that first one, just kind of explaining a little bit more in detail, but the second one, I don't know how long that took me, but it didn't take me that long at all. And that's how I would edit that. That's how I edit in Photoshop, using Camera Raw to adjust and tweak the colors before I get them in. And that's it. What I would say is one of the best ways to get the most consistency in your work, in my opinion, is to be consistent with your lighting. I've said it before in other videos, I use flash predominantly 90-something% of the time. And what it does is it allows me to get the same look every time consistently, so that when I get it into Photoshop Bridge, it's a very small, limited edit for what I have to do. So hopefully I didn't disappoint you too much because I use Photoshop and not Lightroom, but that's the way I do it, and I don't believe I'm going to be opening up Lightroom anytime soon. So if you like what you see, please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the little bell for notifications. And until next time, keep shooting and maybe editing. All right. See ya.